All right. How you doing, folks? Ron Raymond here from the Raymond Report Sports Betting Podcast for a Thursday, November 12th. I'm always joined here by my good friend and co-host, Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com. How you doing this fine Thursday, Mr. Benjamin?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling lucky, Ron. I had Western Michigan last night, and I don't know if you tuned into that game, but this is what I mean about, we cry about bad losses or bad beats, as the phrase goes. But last night was one of those lucky wins. I had Western Michigan -2, and they came back from they were down 41-30 with less than a minute to go, and they scored a touchdown with 47 seconds to go, recovered an onside kick, and then scored a touchdown with 15 seconds left. I won the game 44-41, covering by a point. So, Ron, it's maybe when you're going 50-50 like I have been recently, that's what usually starts a good run. So 2-0 on the week with the Jets on Monday and Western Michigan last night, Ron. So that's why I'm feeling a little bit lucky today. How about you, buddy?
Hey, you know what? Like that song says, take the money and run.
Exactly. Steve Miller Band.
Steve Miller Band, man. I love, you know what? I used
Yeah.
to listen to the Steve Miller Band a lot.
Yeah.
Back in the old days where,
Yeah.
when you put the decibels past 6, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Very quiet night last night. I took, didn't do any MAC games the last couple of nights. Just a lot of preparation for today's show, college football. We're going to go through some really good games here, Ross, this weekend in college football. We got Arkansas, Florida. We're going to kick it off with. We got Notre Dame, Boston College. We're going to talk about Miami against Virginia Tech, a little bit of revenge factor there. SMU against Tulsa. Tulsa finally going to play a football game these days. TCU, West Virginia, and then we're going to close it off with Indiana, Michigan State, because we had Georgia, Missouri on deck, but as we know, that game was postponed. So, Ross, I just want to take a minute here to welcome all the people who are watching today on our YouTube channel, and always welcome to take any feedback that you guys have on the chat. And College Football Thursday. That's what we started this little routine here, and then once the other sports get going, we throw that in the week. But Thursdays is college football. Friday is football Friday, the NFL, and we'll be talking about some NFL games on Friday. And so looking forward to that today. Now, before we get going, Ross, where can people get your plays if they're interested in buying your selections?
ATSStats.com, which is Ron's site. I had that Western Michigan game up last night, cashed in. You could also get my daily, weekly, and monthly packages right there at ATSStats.com. The NFL on an absolute nice run since the first Monday night of the year, Ron. 29-18. That's a 62% winning run in the NFL. And college football, big Saturday up, probably 3 to 5 selections, 1 10-star top play. Same thing on Sunday in the NFL. And I will have the winning total on the Indianapolis and Tennessee game tonight up right after the show. And also, Ron, I do have a free pick on that side in that Indianapolis, Tennessee game tonight. If you click on free picks at ATSStats.com, you'll see a free pick video up there, and with the Indianapolis and Tennessee background. So I have that as well. And you could also find me at RBWins.com. And folks, if you don't see anything that would adhere to what you're looking for, you can call me direct, 781-571-0299, and I could tailor a package specifically for your needs. That's 781-571-0299. And again, my website, rbwins.com.
That's awesome. And you know what? He's off to a good start with Western Michigan yesterday. So one thing I do know about Ross Benjamin, once he gets the ball rolling, you want to get on that bandwagon because he could go on a nice little streak. Also, Ross, people who are interested in the Raymond Report can follow us here each and every day on our YouTube channel. And if you go to our website, I'm going to do a screen share here. Do you see the front page of our site, Ross?
I do.
Awesome. That means I'm on the ball here too. So that's we're 2-0 right now. So I like that.
It's always a good sign for a good show.
Yeah, it's a good start, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to college football, you go to free Raymond Report. Just click on it, and then once you get there, you go to the pull down menu, select the game of your choice, and let's say Notre Dame, Boston College, and you can get the free Rain Report Light version. We'll give you all the information you need to start your handicapping. We got some nice stats and trends at the bottom, and you can get that all for free by visiting our website right here at atsstats.com. Or like Ross said, if you're interested in our free picks, you can get it right here. And we do have a new software here now. We're rolling out the big toys now, eh, Ross? We're getting out. We got Chip Trimbas now on deck. He's got a play for tonight, and you can get the single pick packages or single picks and the premium packages that we have here at atsstats.com. So if you need a little help with your handicapping and you're not having not having fun, and you want to maybe jump on board a handicapper to help change your luck, why not give us a shot here at atsstats.com. Hopefully you get us on a good day, which we've had a lot this year, right, Ross? We've had some really good streaks this year, and it's what we do for a living, folks. And if you don't do it for a living, then we're plan B.
You don't last. If you don't last as long as we have, if doing it for a living, and specifically the only thing we do for a living, unless you have a good track record and you've exuded some honesty, professionalism, and integrity, Ron, along the way. And as you said, folks who want to change their luck, we will change your luck. The bottom line is, if you're going to base it on a short sample size, you catch us on a losing day and you're going to jump ship, you're never going to win. I could tell you, we're going to change your luck if you stick with us over the long haul.
Right on. All right, Ross. Let's talk about the first game on deck here. We got the Arkansas Razorbacks taking on the Florida Gators. Now, do you see this here? I just want to make sure I'm doing the double check.
I'm seeing a bunch of boxes inside.
Okay, yeah. Let me do a new screen share here then. Yeah, because I see the same thing on our YouTube channel right there. How about that?
I do.
Awesome. All right. So we got Arkansas taking on the Florida Gators. They were chomping last week for sure. The Florida Gator fans were, because they came off the world's biggest cocktail party. Probably got the world's biggest hangover too, with a nice win, a 44-28 over the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, going in this game, it was pegged as Florida's offense against Georgia's Bulldogs defense, and we talked about this last week, and I did my theory, and I had Florida in this game, and I think you did too. I can't remember if you did.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. That's right. So we both have Florida, and my thing was this. In the regular season, I always tend to lean with the team that has the best offense. But when it comes to playoffs, I'll always lean with the team that has the best defense for various reasons, right? And it's in obvious reasons. But looking at last week's game, the Arkansas, the Florida Gators, man, nobody expected them to put 44 points on the Georgia Bulldog defense. And you know what? They really helped themselves in the mind of the public on what type of team that Dan Mullen has here at Florida. Because, hey, Kirby Smart, we all know he's a very good coach, a very defensive-minded coach. But you know what? He got out-coached last week, or the Bulldogs got outplayed by the Gators.
Yeah, you're looking at an Arkansas team that's 3-3 this year. Ron, they came into the season, I believe, on a 22-game losing streak in SEC play. So definitely an improved team. And some interesting notes here on this game. First of all, the Arkansas head coach, Sam Pittman, who's done a terrific job in his first year with Arkansas, turned them into a very disciplined team. That's what I've witnessed thus far, Ron. I know that you liked him as well. You made a comment about him last week. He's going to be out with COVID-19, and the interim head coach for this game will be Barry Odom, who's their defensive coordinator. Barry Odom, formerly the head coach at Missouri, so he's very familiar with SEC competition. And also Felipe Franks, the starting quarterback for Arkansas, who's had a pretty good start to the year, 14 touchdown passes in his first 6 games. He's the former starter at Florida, Ron, and he lost his job to Kyle Trask. So there's a little bit of intrigue in this game above and beyond the game itself.
No, you're right. And Felipe Franks, the one thing that I'm really impressed with him this year is he's only thrown 3 interceptions. And the same thing with Kyle Trask. Both these quarterbacks going into this game, the only difference between these two quarterbacks is Trask is a bit more advance in my view. But Felipe Franks can run the ball too. He can tuck it and go.
Yeah.
So you know,
Big quarterback. He's a
big
big guy.
quarterback, long strides. And you know what? Looking at this game, Ross, now the Gators going to this one as a 17-point home favorite. The over-under at 60.5. And I'll take a look at the latest lines, because these are lines that we get when I don't know.
Yeah, I got 17 and 62 on this just before we went on air.
All right, 17 and 62. So the total is going up a bit. Now here's the handicapping angle that I'm looking at. You got Florida coming off a big win over Georgia, so there's a potential for a bit of a letdown, just like we saw last week with Michigan State, right? Coming off that big win over Michigan. Now Florida coming off a big highlight game, was on CBS. It was the main game at 3:30. People were watching that game. And Arkansas State last week, looking at their game against Tennessee, I think they were leading at halftime in that game, 13-0 or something like that. And then Tennessee came back to win 24-13. So, great come from behind win to beat the Volunteers last week. Now, I got some stats here, Ross, on the Arkansas. And I think I'm leaning, if I was to play this game, I'm leaning towards the Razorbacks. And here's a couple of reasons why. In the last 10 years, Arkansas, as a road underdog, coming off a win, the over is 15-5 to the over and 6-0 to the in the last 4 years. But here's the one that I really like. Florida Gators, when they come into a game as a 10 or point more home favorite on 6 days rest, and their opponent has a win percentage between 41% to 50%, so they're 3-3 on the season. The Gators are 4-13 against the spread in this spot. So I gave you a nice little stat there on the over, which I think might, with these, like you mentioned in your description, that you got two starting quarterbacks who've got a lot of experience that can probably chuck it around, especially what did you say, Kyle? He had 14 touchdown pass, Franks, and Kyle Trask, that's 22. So the potential of this game going over is pretty good, but I really think the value here is on Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Florida, the good news is they're averaging somewhere around 42 points per game. The bad news is they're giving up 29 a game and over 400 yards per contest. So it's not your atypical Florida defense, as Ron was alluded to. Another side note, speaking of Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask, Felipe Franks was a highly touted quarterback coming out of high school that Florida really sought after really hard and got him there. And he was a starter as a freshman. And Kyle Trask at that time was the 5th string quarterback and was a walk-on.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, he lost his job to Kyle Trask. So again, I'm not saying that's going to make the difference in the game, but it's awful. You got to think that Felipe Franks is going to be really motivated to put on a show in this game, and might go hand in hand with your over lean there, Ron.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a great point. And having coached football at that level, and it's the football team's a brotherhood, and if Felipe Franks is really tight with his teammates and they love him, they'll go to battle for him this weekend. And they know, like in the pros, they call this maybe a chalkboard game, right? But
exactly.
In the college ranks, these guys they play for the love of the game. And then, anytime you're disrupted and you got, the plan A didn't work out and you got to go to plan B to prove yourself. And now you're going to Arkansas. You've done well. Hey, you're 3-3, I said, on the season. 3. And looking at their games that come from behind win last weekend. And then, 31-42 against Texas A&M. This is the game I watched too. I like to, anytime you get an opportunity to watch some of these other teams in the SEC, not always the constant, Bama the main ones. This was a great football game here to watch. What killed Mississippi in that game was all the turnovers. I thought Lane Kiffin was going to lose it, but no. You know what, Ross? Great points. I think Arkansas and the over getting, but goes against my rule of thumb theory. My rule of thumb is this: if you like the underdog, you take the under, but if you like the favorite, you take the over. So I'm a little, confused.
Going against the grain. You got to do that once in a while. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's exceptions to every rule, Ron.
Absolutely.
And you're no different than the rest of us. You have exceptions to the rule. Hey, two things. If you're looking for other SEC games to watch this week, good luck, because 4 of them got canceled. And secondly, my question to you, Ron, is with Sam Pittman out because of COVID-19, how much you think that's going to affect the Razorbacks, if at all?
Well, you always want your leader there, no matter what,
Yeah.
because there's, it's a form of comfort knowing that the guy who's taking care of everything is not there, and it all depends how much the players love him. Like, what I mean? Like, you got players that love their coach and players that like their coach. There's a big difference between like and love. If they love their coach, they'll go to battle for him. If they like him, it'll just be another day at the office, right? That's the way.
If they hate their coach, it might work to their advantage too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of situations out there where, players don't like the head coach, but they love all the assistants. So we'll see. We'll find out. We'll be able to draw a conclusion at the end of this game.
Yeah, should be a good game. It should be. It should be in the sense where how is Florida going to respond after a big win?
Yes.
That's what I'm looking forward to. All right, let's take a look at our next game here, Ross. We got Notre Dame taking on Boston College. I know you've been chomping at the bit there the last couple of days to talk about this one, and I don't blame you. Notre Dame, a 13-point road favorite. The over/under set at 49.5. Boston College last week. You know what? This was a shocker, but not a shocker. You know what I mean? Like, they were the score was so close and so low. 16-13 for Boston College over Syracuse, a Syracuse team who's not really good this year, and they lost to Liberty, and no disrespect to Liberty, but to me, when you lose to programs that not normally in the top 50, not let alone 25, you shouldn't be losing to the schools like Liberty. But Liberty's a good team this year, I'll give them that. And then you got Notre Dame coming off that classic double overtime win over the Clemson Tigers last week, 47-40 over Dano Sweeney. Man, am I going to learn how to talk here? Dabo Sweeney. Hey, I gotta let my tongue catch up.
Easy for you to say, Ron.
You know what, Ross? I got to start thinking decaf. That's what I got to start thinking.
I know what you're saying, bro.
Yeah. So, but Phil Jurkovec, it's Jurkovec, the quarterback for Boston College. Here's another situation where he's facing his old teammates, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. You're looking at a BC team in terms of what they faced last week in Syracuse, who I believe is now 1-7 after that loss last week, if not 1-6, somewhere in that area. Terrible. Let's put it that way. They had played Clemson the week before, meaning Boston College. They came off a loss 34-28 as a heavy underdog. They gave Clemson all they can handle, actually blew a 28-10 halftime lead in that game. And then they played Syracuse, in knowing when they went into that Syracuse game, they had Notre Dame on deck. So I give them excuse for a flat spot there, but let's stop and think about this. I mentioned this to you off air. Notre Dame coming off a win against the number 1 team in the country at home. The last time Notre Dame even hosted a number 1 team in the country was back in the early 90s when Lou Holtz was their head coach, and they hosted number 1 Florida State, coached by a guy by the name of Bobby Bowden. Not a bad coach, Ron.
Not bad.
And Notre Dame was upset by Boston College after they beat Florida State. The following week, they hosted Boston College, and Boston College knocked them off as the number 1 team in the country. So my point is, ironically, they knock off the number 1 team in the country at home. The only circumstance is now they go on the road, and once again, they're facing Boston College. Now, we could say it's irony and it's a sure letdown spot for Notre Dame, and it might be. But by the same token, these players have heard this storyline all week long, Ron.
Yeah.
And to me, this Ian Book really showed me a lot last week, Ron. I said he needed to throw for 250 to 300 last week, which he did, for Notre Dame to even have a chance in that game. And he showed me that if he needs to throw, he's an extremely accurate thrower, especially on the run. He could beat you with his legs. He could extend plays. He really showed me a lot. He's drastically improved from the quarterback we saw a season ago. And I think that's going to be a big difference. And, Notre Dame's defense has been terrific all year. They gave up some points and yards against Clemson, but everybody's going to, Ron. You know what I mean? You got to keep in mind they gave up 33 in regulation time, and then probably an additional 60 to 70 in overtime point or yards, I should say. So I wouldn't be. I know superficially you would think this would be a good spot for Boston College, but this is a game I'm going to stay away from. Like I said, Ron, this is a good Notre Dame team. And they know their margin for error is not like with Clemson. Clemson can run the table right now, and they're going to be in the college football playoff. Now, if Notre Dame loses to Clemson in the ACC title game, I still think they have a legitimate chance to be in a playoff, but they can't lose any games in between. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not so sure Notre Dame is going to be as flat as a pancake as a lot of people think they're going to be in this contest.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got North Carolina on deck, and Boston College has Louisville. But you are right, Ross. You know what? This is like looking at last week, Michigan State and Iowa. No one was talking about that factor of the letdown in media or top on.
We did. We
did.
About
but I'm talking mainstream media.
Mainstream, right?
Yeah, but here's where I'm going to think like a bookmaker. Everybody's been talking about this week. Yeah. You listen to mainstream radio, and everybody's talking about the Notre Dame last time. In this situation was bought. So the secret's out of the bag, and the bookmakers had time to maybe adjust the number, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your number against the bookmaker, and that's what the bookmaker has is the number that he can put. And trust me, you don't think the bookmaker probably knew this the minute that game ended? They know. Bookmakers have, some of it's almost like the CIA, the software they have, right? It's like they got some really good, and, bookmakers, like you said, they very smart. And that's why they're on that side of the table, the desk, and we're on this side of the desk because we're trying to beat their number.
Think about this too, Ron, if I may. This line opened with Notre Dame being a 13-point favorite. A lot of the general public, and with volume of bets and money, have sided with Boston College. Yet that line went from 13 to 13.5. To me, that's a sure tell sign of some early sharp money going the way of Notre Dame. It's called a reverse line movement.
Okay. Yeah. And
okay.
No, I'm trying to. Hey,
I always love when you say that.
I know you do. That's but hey, I just we just talked about that. The bookmaker, they know about this, and I agree with you. Like it's look at the total 49.5, and when Boston College an underdog the last 7 years, the under 10-1-1 to the under. So I agree with you. I agree with the psychology of the betting play. You think you got one on the bookmaker, but now you're playing reverse psychology, and you're
what's
you're
that 10-1-1 under, Ron? What's the specifics on that?
Yeah, so when Boston College is an underdog, the last 7 years coming off one under, the under is 1-1. So I forgot to mention that when they're coming off one under. But if you do like Boston College this weekend, I do have Boston College is a home underdog the last 3 years, 7-2-1 against the number. So not a bad number for Boston College against the spread, but like you said, this is a tough task. And maybe the good news for Boston College is that they're getting Notre Dame after a Clemson game, where we talk about the Steelers and the Titans and the Steelers and the Raven games getting beat up. Maybe maybe Notre Dame is really feeling it on this week with all the injuries. You play those big SEC teams or ACC teams, the top ones like Alabama, Clemson, Florida, those type of teams, you're going to feel it for the week, right? The Bobos are going to come out.
Yeah, you can't imagine that Notre Dame's going to be anywhere near the emotional state that they were last week against number one Clemson. And then, as Ron alluded to, the BC quarterback, Jerkovich, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. Whatever the case may be. I mean, no disrespect to the young man, but he's a former Notre Dame quarterback that was never able to make his mark there, and now he's a starter at BC. So another intriguing side note to a matchup.
And you know what? Another thing that people aren't talking about. Look at some of the teams that are just starting, the Big Ten, the Pac-10, the big, or not the Pac-10, the teams that the MAC just started a couple weeks ago. They don't have games under their belts. These teams have games under their belts. Look at this. Boston College already going to be playing their 9th game, and Notre Dame going to be in their 8th game. That's huge. That's a lot of reps, and that's a lot of timing. And again, Boston College, if you look at their last couple of games, they played Clemson too, and they 34-28. Remember, that was the game where they were leading, and then Clemson had to come from behind. So if we think that Boston College can hang with these ACC teams, we have the proofs in the pudding right here.
Yeah, like I touched upon, they were leading 28-10 at the half in that game. So, they had them on the ropes, Ron.
Yeah. A rain report line on this game, Ross. We had Notre Dame minus 24.4. And look at it's almost in half, 13. And then we had Boston College minus 1.5. Now, that's not minus 1.5 against Notre Dame. That's what in the rain report, I value teams. I do a power rating. And if you were to buy Boston College on the stock market, that's what I would grade them as a minus 1.5 type team. So take it for what it's worth. And if you use the system that I used last week, where anytime you got a minus right here in the value index with a plus, that system in the rain report last week, Ross, went 11-1 against the spread.
Wow. Explain that further to the folks again.
Yeah. So basically, here, I'll grab it from our website here. College. If you go to cheat sheet.
Yeah.
And then in the cheat sheet, what I do is I have the power ratings here, the value index. So let's say right here, I look for a minus. Anytime you have two minuses or a minus with a plus. So I know SMU, let me see, TCU, here's a perfect example, and we'll talk about this game. Anytime you got a minus 1.38, so that's my line, minus 1.38, and you're getting plus money, this system last week went 11-1 against the spread.
Wow.
In the rain report. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's impressive.
Yeah.
Again, Ron, I don't think the people realize how great a database you put together here with all these features. We mentioned last week too, and we continue to mention over the last couple of weeks how well the computer has done against the spread and with totals. So again, folks, I would highly recommend. It's not an easy fix, but some of the stuff on his website is well worth the small investment.
Yeah, and it's not even investment in money. It's mainly investment in time and learning the system, because it's handicapping. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And the sports books, it would say bank. It wouldn't say casino on it, right? I mean, like, you can go in there and get money. But it's to beat the number. Everybody's got their own way of handicapping. And 3-4 years ago, I went back to the drawing board because I was tired of being average. And I wanted to get more consistent. Yeah, obviously, I'd love to hit about 80-90% all the time, but that's unrealistic in this industry. My goal, Ross, to be honest, if I can hit anywhere between 57 to 65% on a regular basis, to me that's mission accomplished with the rain report. And that's just being honest, and that's the way it is in our industry. You will go on good streaks. You're going to have some really good streaks like you have and I have in the past, where you might go 15-5 or 12-2, but then you're gonna have the law of average kick in, and vice versa. Like I had 2 weeks ago, I had an 0-5 Saturday in college football, so it does happen, right?
Yep, it certainly does to the best of us, and I'd like to think we're in that category, and that's what I mean about the computer picks. Now it's hitting at an outrageous rate on both sides in total, so you just can't marry yourself. As impressive as it's been in the accolades I'm giving Ron for all this material he provides on his site, you just can't marry yourself to one aspect of handicapping, right, Ron? In other words, if you're going to go in there and just start looking at computer picks and making your picks based on that, well, God bless you if you've been doing that from the beginning, but it's going to level off eventually. And like Ron said, I mean, when you're hitting 69 and 70% for the year on sides and totals with the computer picks, it's even if it goes on a bad streak right now for the rest of the year, you're going to hit around 60% for the year. And that's a realistic number. You know what I mean? And 57%, a lot of people will tell you, Ron, I could do 57% on my own. Really? Okay, well, try. At the end of the day, based on just $100 a game and laying 10% juice, 57% over 100 games, you're going to make quite a bit of money, and that's it, just $100 a game. And people don't realize that. They also don't know how difficult it is. Okay, you went 7-3 over the last 2 weeks, and you think hitting 57% is easy. Well, show me what you are over 365 days. And yep. I can guarantee you, if you're not doing it full time like us, you're not at 57%. So,
yep, anyway. And I agree 100%. It's a tough industry, and yeah, it's really.
You gotta be honest with yourself too, Ron. You know what I mean? You got to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. If you want to win in sports gambling, and again, the biggest flaw of most people is their money management.
Great minds think alike. I was just about to say that money management is the key, and patience. And me and Ross, sometimes we come on here and we have different philosophies where, when I go on a losing streak, I'll scale back my picks next week, where Ross, it feels different. Right.
Yeah.
But it's all your money management, the tolerance level that you have of, if you can take the loss or not. Right. Some people, they just can't handle losing, and they just go off the wheels. Right. You got to be able to accept winning and losing in the same form. Right. That's the way I think.
Yeah. I mean, you got to, it's as hard as it may be, the key is staying on an even keel. And what Ron's trying to say, for example, if you allow a losing day to turn into 2 losing days because your emotion gets involved, you're never going to win. And what normally happens is when people have a losing day, they try to make up for it the next day by forcing plays or doubling up on the amount they wagered the day before. And then they really dig themselves in a hole. Next thing you know, you've lost $10,000 because you doubled up. And the following week, you decide, well, I better scale back to 500 a game. And I'm not comparing this to what Ron does. It's a whole different entity, what we're talking about. But my point is, then you go 5-0 the following week, and you only got 2,500 to 10,000 back. So yep. My point is, at the end of the day, the bottom line, you have to have proper money management. Stick to a money management system. Don't double up when you're winning. Don't double up when you're losing to try to catch up. Stay within your system. Stay within your bankroll. Know what your bankroll is, and never exceed 3 to 5% on any one play within that bankroll.
Yeah, and you know what? One thing I did this weekend after a good Sunday, I took Monday off. And you got to do that sometimes, guys. You have a great weekend. Why would you want to just piss it away the next day on a Monday night football game that means between the Jets and Patriots?
Yeah. Well, I had the Jets.
Ruin your weekend.
I really liked the Jets in that game. And I won. But having said that, to Ron's point, just because a game is on a Monday and it's the only game on the board, think about this, folks. If you took that Monday game and put it on the Sunday's card, would you use it? And that's what Ron is saying. If he took that Jets and New England game and put it on Sunday's card, which with 13 other games like last week, he would not have even touched that. So why should he use it because it's the only game on the board? And that's the most difficult thing to do for some gamblers and also some handicappers as well. So,
yeah, and I like the Jets too, and you had it as a play, and so
some underdogs of 10 or greater are hard for me to pass up. You know what I mean?
Well, not according to your clients, right?
No, they thought I was nuts when I gave them that play.
Yeah. I think we need a voice prop that comes in with a Fraser Crane. I'm listening.
That's the other thing. I don't. We've become accustomed just not letting that affect us over the years.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Ross. Miami taking on Virginia Tech. A little revenge factor game here for Virginia Tech. Looking at this line here this weekend, -1.5. The over/under set at 67.5. ATS forecast. Let me see here. We got 39.1, 26.8. The over/under at 65.9. So a hair under the total. Man, we got a total of 65, and I'm still talking under. That's how crazy this whole season's been. Looking at the Hurricanes' last win, that was a Thursday night against the NC State Wolfpack. A nice come from behind win. And Virginia Tech, we talked about it last week. The game that they played the week before, they played Louisville, they won, and then they knew they had Miami on deck. And maybe that was a letdown spot that they got caught looking ahead and didn't take Liberty that serious. But going into this game, even though Miami is 4-1 straight up in their last 5, they're only 1-4 against the numbers. So not a bettor's best friend these days. Virginia Tech 2-3, 2-3-0 to the point spread, but 3-2 to the over. Now, my line on the Raymond Report, we had Virginia Tech at -6.8. But we also had the Hurricanes at -8. So good value if you do like Miami this weekend. Looking at this game, as I said, Ross, if you look at last season, Virginia Tech won this game 37-16. So revenge factor for Miami, not Virginia Tech. And should be a good one this weekend. I believe it's in Plattsburgh, right?
Yeah, it's in Blacksburg. That's correct. And once again, this is the second week in a row that Virginia Tech, I have them at -2 before I came on air at Bookmaker, total 67.5. Second straight week, Ron, the Virginia Tech as an unranked team is a favorite against a ranked team. Much different, though, in this particular instance. Last week, it was against number 25 Liberty, an up-and-coming program that, like you said, they were very vulnerable to letting down. Number 25 or not, Virginia Tech is not going to take Liberty as seriously as they are a number 9 team in the country like Miami. Here's my concern from Miami's standpoint, Ron. They've played 3 road games this year. They've gone 2-1 against Louisville, Clemson, and North Carolina State. In those 3 road games, they've allowed 34, 42, and 41 points. Even though they were 2-1, they allowed a lot of points. And in those 3 games, they also allowed the opposition to rack up 492 yards per game in total offense. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, an extremely good running team, averaging 277 yards per game, but they're not very good defensively. So we might be seeing another one of these types of games, Ron, where it goes down to the wire and the game is in the high 30s and low 40s. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And then I have a betting angle here that anytime you have a college football team playing in a conference game who is +3 to -3, like both teams will be this week. This is in reference to Virginia Tech, and they're playing an opponent like Miami, who's coming off a road win by 3 points or fewer. And Miami is coming off that narrow win by 2 points, I believe it was, at NC State. Those teams have gone 24-5 against the spread since 2016. So that's pretty good. It's a solid betting angle that supports Virginia Tech. Real tough call for me at this point. But a lot to look at. I mean, again, I'm going to take a look at this total and see where the money goes, where the number goes, because this looks to me like to be a very high scoring game. Again, I need to check the weather in that contest as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with you. I do like, even though the computer likes Miami and the score here. I agree with you. I think Virginia Tech here is the side for me when I look at it.
Yeah, think like a bookmaker, right, Ron?
Yep.
You know what I mean? They had them as a double-digit favorite last week against a ranked team, and they come back with them again as a favorite against a top 10 team at home. So, they're not that generous, Ron. So it's something to just keep in mind, folks.
And don't let that total scare you off it. Even though the total is 67.5, Virginia Tech at home, when the total's 54.5 or more, 24-5 straight up. Yeah. So pretty solid. And then anytime they're at home and the total 60 or more, 8-2 straight up and against the spread. So things to consider this weekend between Virginia Tech. So don't let that total 67 scare you, because Virginia Tech, this is not their first barbecue. Whenever they see a total of 60 or more, they've done very well in the past.
Yeah, giving up 31.6 points per game, by the way, Ron, despite that 4-3 record I think they have. And, Liberty had almost 500 yards of total offense against Virginia Tech last week. And the last I checked, Derek King is a much better quarterback than the good quarterback from Liberty. All due respect to him, but Derek King is one of the best in the country at this particular moment in time, as far as college football quarterbacks go.
Well, like you mentioned, anytime they play like teams like North Carolina, Clemson, Louisville, look at the scores, right?
Yeah.
So, hey,
Yeah, look at it. I mean, look at the 3 road games they've played, Ron. Look at the scores in those 3 road games Miami's played. 44-41 against North Carolina State. At Clemson, 42-17, and at Louisville, 47-34. So, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, no, Miami would be a great team in the Big 12. That's what they look like this year, a Big 12 team. It's like a shootout type team, right? They got the offense to really to shoot it out, but the defense, that's they saw it against Clemson and when they play other good programs. All right, let's go to that SMU versus Tulsa. Now, looking at this game here, you got Shane Buechele against Zach Smith. You got 2 really good quarterbacks in this game here. SMU, every time I see SMU, I think of the June Jones years, right? The run and shoot. Man, those. Hey, back in the day, that's where the air raid and all these guys started this stuff with June Jones, Mike Leach, Hal Mummy started the air raid and the run and shoot. And I think it goes way back then to the BYU years too. So this has the potential to be a really high shootout. 63.5 is the total. Tulsa, though, a 2-point home favorite this weekend. Now, Tulsa, bit bad luck the last couple of weeks. They had their game suspended or because of COVID a couple of times. And they've only played 4 games, where SMU now going into their 9th game. And this, we talked about this since day one, right? We knew it was going to be a type of year like that with COVID. But looking at the computer, Ross, 33-21 in favor of the Golden Hurricane. I think, with these 2 quarterbacks, with Buechele, 189 for 283 on the year for 66%. In fact, both these quarterbacks, don't throw a lot of interception. Well, Buechele, only 3 interceptions in 8 games. How impressive is that?
And especially the rate at which they throw the ball, right, Ron? Their pass-to-run ratio is higher than most college football teams. Another instance, Ron, where we have a ranked team, number 19 SMU at this present time, as an underdog against an unranked team. So it tells you, again, think like a bookmaker, folks. It's not that easy. Just because you're getting an underdog that's ranked against an unranked team doesn't mean you should automatically just no-brain your way through it and take the ranked team as an underdog. And also, these teams have been quite impressive this year. This is a very underrated matchup this week, in my opinion, Ron, because SMU's only loss came to number 7 Cincinnati, and Tulsa's only loss was to number 14 Oklahoma State in the season opener. And this has all the makings of a game that goes right down to the wire, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at my I got some stats here. I did a little bit of research on this game. Tulsa, if you remember that game against Central Florida, that was a great come from behind win. They were down at halftime.
21.5 point underdog beside it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this Tulsa is a good team. SMU as an underdog the last 10 years, and they're in a cycle of 2 wins and 1 loss in their last 3 games. They are 2-14 straight up in their next game.
Wow.
And 2-14 to the under. So again, the Raym report, value, percentage play, and the performance cycles. And that's one of the things I do, Ross, with the Raym report. I look at game cycles, right? Because we talk it all the time. What's that team in their last 3 games? What's that team in the last 5 games? Those are cycles. And that's what I include in my Raym report. And again, when SMU's an underdog the last 10 years, and they're going through a 2-1 cycle in their last 3 games, 2-14 straight up, 2-14-0 to the under. And when they're a pick 'em to +3 underdog coming off a win, they are 1-7 in their next game. So a lot of numbers pointing towards Tulsa here. And Tulsa, their last game was a win. If you look at their last game, was a 34-30 win over East Carolina. And when Tulsa's a -3 or less home favorite coming off a win, 8-1 straight up and against the spread in their next game.
Yeah. And you know what? The straight up numbers that Ron's rattling off take on more of a significance in this game, because when you look at the current line, which I have Tulsa at -2.5, you're going to say, well, Ron, why are you rattling off straight up numbers? We're out to beat the number. Well, the chances of a game finishing as a 1 or 2 point deficit are very small. Okay. So when you get those straight up numbers, when the line is less than a field goal like this time, it takes on added significance to me. And again, if indeed it was the other way, the straight up numbers, if they favor an underdog, it's even more significant. So very good points, Ron. Those are pretty solid numbers.
And I call this game a Geico game, Ross. Like Geico Insurance. If I have a line that's -2 or -2.5 or less, I'll spend the extra money as insurance and take the game on the money line.
That's a great point, Ron. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to finish off though on that.
Yeah, I think why sweat out a backdoor cover, some stupid thing at the end where a field goal they win by 1? Why not? It's like basketball. I do the same thing in basketball. If it's -2.5 or lower, spend the extra $10-20, take it on the money line, and feel good knowing in the fourth quarter that if it's that close, you don't have to sweat out the number. Just get that win straight up.
Well, Chip Chirimbus has put this in my mind. Chip is going to be joining us on our network here, and he's already posted on the website. And he said, Ross, on these -1, -2 games, he agrees wholeheartedly with your theory. He says, think about this. We don't hesitate to lay -125 or -135 in Major League Baseball. But why would we hesitate and leave ourselves vulnerable by not doing the same thing in these games when you're laying a short number? So it makes a lot of sense to me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right. TCU taking on West Virginia. Boy, another good game here. You got two quarterbacks here. Max Duggan up against Jared Doji. I think it's Doji.
Yeah.
And looking at this game here, Doji, 11 touchdown passes this year, only 3 interceptions in 7 games. And Max Duggan, over 1,100 yards in passing, 5 touchdowns, only 5 touchdowns in 6 games. That's a little bit, scary to me a bit, but only 2 INTs. So it tells me, just looking at the quarterback numbers, that TCU really have control on this quarterback here because they're probably scared of his turnover ratio. But Jared Doege here for West Virginia having a really good year, and so is West Virginia when you think about it. Looking at their record on the year, they are 4-3. It's not a great record, but for West Virginia, looking at that defense going into this game this weekend, a -4 home favorite. The over-under set at 44.5. We're all over West Virginia here, Ross. 34.2 to 23.05. The over-under at 57.3. My question to you is this another West Virginia, Kansas State type game?
Yeah, it's one of those games it's a tough call. West Virginia's defense is extremely good, especially for the Big 12 conference team, Ron. If you look inside their numbers, look at last week, they lost 17-13 at Texas. That's a pretty dynamic offense, Texas, led by quarterback Sam Ehlinger, and they held them to 17 on the road. I got West Virginia going 3-0 straight up in ATS in their last 3 at home this year, all against Big 12 conference teams, if I'm not mistaken. TCU, on the other hand, is going to be playing with revenge, as they've gone 0-2 the last 2 years against West Virginia. This might shape up to be a lower scoring game. Again, I say that because that's what the obvious look is going to be. You got one of the best defensive coaches in the country in Gary Patterson against one of the better defensive teams in the country at this particular moment in time in West Virginia. But, you look at the total, it's very low for a college football game, 45.5. By the way, it's probably low for an NFL game in 2020 as well. So, that sort of shies me away from contemplating taking the under. This is a really tough call, Ron.
Yeah, they're the Doege. That's I I apologize if I butcher the name, but it's one thing I love to get right eventually, because it means a lot to the players, and I don't like to. I do my research. I'll go on YouTube and I'll see what the announcers Dogie, and just gotta, that's my subconscious coming out here. But yeah, no, going into this game though, Ross, I got this stat on West Virginia as a favorite coming off an under. Check this out: 35-4 straight up.
Wow.
So when West Virginia is a favorite coming off one under, which they did last week against Texas, was a 17-13 loss. They are 35-4 straight up in their next game. So, and 25-12 to the under and 2, 25, 12 and 2 to the under. So, there's a reason why that line's at 44. And you're right, for a Big 12 matchup, this is a very low number, right? When you're used to seeing Big 12 going like in the 70s, I think that's almost par for the course when for a Big 12 game is 67, 72, seeing those type of numbers. Now, the last time these two teams met last year, it was a 20-17 win for West Virginia at TCU. So TCU, in fact, TCU, the last time they beat West Virginia was in 2015. Actually, it was on my wife's birthday, October 29th. Yeah.
I'm sure she recalls that, Ron.
Yeah. I'll have to buy her some new Skechers for that day. That courtesy of us.
Just don't leave them with the dog. That's all.
Yeah. So you know what? Bit of a revenge factor here for TCU, but they're going into West Virginia. And looking at our line, Ross, we had West Virginia minus 8.3. And we had TCU again, minus 1.3. So this is like the third game in a row the system is taken. And to me, it comes into that uncomfortable pick type situation, right? If you do like TCU, you're probably a contrarian going into this game. Looking at TCU's last game against Texas Tech, and Texas Tech got dismantled against Oklahoma the week before. And they beat them last week, 34-18. And then they beat Baylor. So you know what? 2 wins in a row now for TCU, putting up 30-plus points in those last 2 games. Man, this is a tough game to call. What's their record on the year? 3-3. So, hey, and you said it. Gary Patterson's a great coach, right?
Yeah, he's a great defensive coach. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the personnel defensively he's had in the past, but this is far from a dynamic offense in West Virginia that he's facing. So, again, we'll see. It's too low of a number for me to go under, not only in the Big 12, but in college football in general. And this is a pretty even matchup. If you put the proverbial gun to my head, it just seems like everything's pointing toward West Virginia. Maybe we should go the other way. But, that to me is not sound logic. I need more than just that off the top of my head. I'm probably going to stay away from this game, Ron.
Yeah, no, West Virginia, that stat I showed as a favorite coming off an under, 35-4. That really sticks in my head, and I don't know if I want to go against a team that's plays well as a favorite. And they enjoy home cooking this year, right? 4-0 at home, but 0-3 on the road. A little bit of Jekyll and Hyde syndrome going here for the Mountaineers.
3-0 straight up. 3-0 straight up in ATS at home against conference opponents too. So. Yeah, it's something to keep in mind with West Virginia.
Yeah, our good friend Lloyd McCullough Jr. is back on track here, Ross. He's saying good morning, guys. And
morning, Lloyd.
And we got BY being him, Gator Nation, he says. We talked about that. And it should be an interesting matchup. I think the total is something you want to look in that game. All right, we got Indiana taking on the Michigan State Spartans. Ross, we have the 3-0 Indiana Hoosiers. And no, it's not basketball. It is football. This is going to be an interesting matchup to see if the Hoosiers can keep that winning streak going, and they'll be playing against a Michigan State team who's going to be probably a bit in the ornery mood this weekend because they got absolutely destroyed last week against Iowa Hawkeyes 49-7. But they did pull off the upset 2 weeks ago in the Big House, winning at Michigan, beating the Wolverines here 27-24. Now they go into this game as an underdog. That's right. Indiana, a 7.5-point favorite, Ross. And you know what? They've only been a road favorite 13 times since 96. So when it's 7 or more. So anytime they're a 7 or more home favorite, only 13 times, and then they're 11-2 straight up in that roll. But going to this one, the computer Ross does like Michigan State 40-23. The over-under at 63.9. Man, that's a lot of points right here. But Michigan State, which team is going to show up? The team that played against Michigan or the team that laid an egg against the Hawkeyes?
Let's start with Indiana, coming off a win at home against Michigan. They had not beaten Michigan since 1987. They broke a 24-game losing streak against the Wolverines. And now they take on a Michigan State team that was blown out at Iowa last week, 49-7. And guess who Indiana's got up next? They got number 3 Ohio State up next. So not only did they beat Michigan, who they've been their longtime nemesis, they got the number 3 team in the country up next. And in between, a Michigan State team that's hard to figure out. They were upset against Rutgers in the first week of the season, a game in which they turned the ball over 7 times. They come back and win as a better than 3 touchdown underdog at Michigan. And then last week as a 4.5 to 5 point underdog, never were in the game against Iowa. So I think this is a dangerous spot for Indiana. I just don't have a good gauge on them right now because I'm not so sure they're as good as the number 10 team in the country. But they've looked awful well so far this year. And if they come up big again this week on the road is better than a touchdown favorite or a touchdown favorite, Ron, I'll be convinced.
Well, looking at the history between these two teams, Ross, when Indiana is playing at Michigan State, they are 1-10 straight up. And the last time they won in Michigan State, East Lansing, was 2001. So it's been a while since they got that W in East Lansing. And I do have an angle on the over, Ross, and it does support the computer picks total. When Michigan State's an underdog, a home underdog, after a division game, so they played last week against Iowa, and their opponent they're facing has a win percentage of 80% or higher, the over is 8-2-1 since 96. So not a lot of occurrences, but enough that meets my 10 minimum requirement. And when Indiana's home or away last 6 years and they won their last game by 17 points or more, the over is 10-2 for the Hoosiers in their next game. So a couple of little tidbits going into this game for the total. So if you were considering the total in this game, I gave you 2 good nice little stats here. The only thing I don't like, though, is the Kogo's at 17%. The Kogo is a percentage play, and that's because a lot of these games have gone over the total. If you look at the scores, 49-7, so that game went over. This game here landed on 51. This one here went over, and this game here went over. So both these teams have played a lot of over, so that's the only thing that concerns me from a percentage play point of view, that the percentage play does favor the under in this game, going in East Lansing against Indiana and Michigan State. So anything to add on this one, Ross?
Again, it's a danger spot for Indiana here. And then on the other side of the coin, they beat a team that's they've lost to 24 times in a row last week, but now they come into a game against a team like Ron just alluded to. They've lost 10 of the last 11 in East Lansing. They're actually 3-19 overall in their last 22 against Michigan State. So do they step up and prove that they're the Big Ten team to take seriously by knocking off another arch nemesis within the conference? Again, what scares me, Ron, big win over Michigan last week on the road against Michigan State, who looked awful last week, and looking ahead to number 3 Ohio State in their next game. That's what would scare me off of going with Indiana in this contest.
Yep. Before we go, Ross, I want to bring up the game Arkansas, Florida. One thing I didn't do is I didn't give the computer forecast in that game. Yep. We talked about it, but the forecast does like Florida 38.8 to 16.9. The over under at 55.8. You know me, Ross. I like to cross the T's and dot the I's.
No, that's fine. Especially when we got a Florida Gator fan chiming in here.
Yeah, exactly. So that was for you, BY Bin him. And so college football Thursday is in the books, Ross Benjamin. Again, what's your slate going to look like this week here at ATS Stats?
Well, I definitely have a Thursday night NFL total that will be put up for sale very shortly. Again, if you go to the free picks page, I have the winning side in that NFL game in my free pick video, meaning the Colts and the Titans. I will most likely have a play in the Cincinnati game tonight against East Carolina. I normally don't dabble with point spreads that high, but I'm contemplating doing so. And Saturday, 3 to 5 picks in college football, including a 10-star top play. Sunday, 3 to 5 picks in the NFL, including a 10-star top play. And again, Ron, 29-18 over my last 47 picks this year in the NFL. That's good for 62%.
Yeah, no. And again, if you're interested in Ross Benjamin plays, you can get them at his website, rbwins.com, or you can now get the single pick packages by going to our website, atsstats.com. If you look in the right-hand column, you'll see we have the free picks, single picks, or the premium pick packages, which you can get for the week or the month. Or if you go in the pull down menu, you're going to see picks, and then you can select single pick packages. And I'll have between 3 and 5 picks in college football. Still debating on my selections. I've got some picks that made the cut so far. But and again, 4-2 last week, my college football selection. My 5-star best bet was Northwestern over Nebraska. And I went 5-1 overall, my free pick and premium picks in the NFL. Again, my 5-star best bet last weekend in the NFL was the Carolina Panthers +10. All right, Ross. You know what? Great show. College football. I always look forward to Thursday and Friday because we're talking football and we're breaking down games and talking with the people in the chat session. Hopefully we can bring them some winners. And yeah, so, you know, it's a different card this weekend compared to last week in the NFL. I don't see a lot of big games like we did like last week. Last week we had like 4 big games. I think we got a couple this week, but looking forward to that. All right, buddy, before we go, is there anything you'd like to add before we put the lid on this one?
All set. And I thank everybody who's been tuning in to our shows. We're now, I believe, completing our 69th show, which is hard to believe, Ron. Seems like yesterday we began, and I appreciate it. GettyWins.com or ATSStats.com if you want to make some money this weekend. And always a pleasure to work with you, my friend.
Same here, buddy. He's Ross Benjamin. I'm Ron Raymond. This was the Raymond Report Sports Betting Podcast for a Thursday, a college football Thursday, November 12th. Folks, have yourself a great rest of your day. As always, shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.